The kiss came without warning, right there in the snow-dusted pines of the Montana Rockies, and in that single heartbeat, everything I thought I knew about Ryan and me shattered like thin ice under boots. One moment we were laughing about the missed shot at a distant elk. The next his lips were on mine, warm against the freezing wind, and the rifle slipped from my hands into the powder. I pulled back, chest heaving, staring at the man who had been my best friend since freshman orientation at Colorado State. The guy who had stood beside me through every breakup, every family fight, every late-night talk about the future. "Ryan, what the hell?" I managed, voice cracking in the quiet forest. He didn't answer right away. His blue eyes, usually so steady, were wide with something between fear and relief. Blood from the shallow graze on his arm, my accidental shot when I startled at a branch snap, seeped through the sleeve of his camo jacket, but he ignored it, stepping closer instead. "I wanted to do that for 15 years, Ethan. 15 years of pretending I was just the straight best friend who loved hunting and beer and your stupid jokes." The words landed heavier than any bullet. We had planned this trip for months. 2 weeks off work, no wives, no kids, just us in the wilderness like the old days before life got complicated. Ryan was the successful real estate broker with the easy smile that closed deals. I was the graphic designer who still lived in Denver with my parents' expectations ringing in my ears every Sunday dinner. Neither of us had ever hinted at anything more. Yet here we were, miles from the nearest trailhead, with a storm rolling in and his confession hanging between us like gun smoke. I knelt to check his arm, hands shaking as I tore open the first aid kit from my pack. The wound was superficial, thank God, but the real damage was already done. "You're bleeding," I said, stupidly, because what else could I say? Ryan winced, but kept his gaze locked on me. "I know, but I couldn't keep pretending anymore. Not out here. Not with you." The wind picked up, carrying the scent of pine and coming snow. We had hiked in yesterday, laughing about old college pranks, setting up the small cabin we'd rented for the week. Now the silence stretched, filled only by our breathing and the distant call of a raven. I wrapped the bandage tight, mind racing through every moment we had shared. Late nights studying, road trips, the way he always knew when I needed space after my last girlfriend left. Had I missed the signs? Or had I buried my own feelings so deep I refused to see them? "We should get back to the cabin before the storm hits," I muttered, slinging his arm over my shoulder. Ryan nodded, but his hand lingered on my back a second longer than necessary. The walk back was slow, every step crunching snow echoing the chaos in my head. 15 years. 15 years of friendship, and one kiss had just rewritten the entire story. By the time we reached the cabin, fat flakes were falling, and I realized with a sick twist in my gut that there was no turning back. This harmless hunting trip had become the most dangerous thing either of us had ever done. Inside the cabin, the wood stove crackled to life while I helped Ryan out of his jacket, the bandage already spotting red. He sat on the edge of the bunk, watching me with that same quiet intensity that used to make me feel safe. Now it made my skin prickle. "You don't have to say anything right now," he said softly as I poured hot water from the kettle into 2 mugs. I needed you to know, before we go back to Denver and pretend everything's normal." Normal. The word tasted wrong. Normal was Sunday football with his family. Normal was me dodging my mother's questions about why I still wasn't married at 31. I handed him the tea, our fingers brushing, and the contact sent a jolt straight through me. "How long?" I asked finally, voice barely above the wind howling outside. Ryan stared into his mug. "Since the night you drove me home after my dad's heart attack. You stayed on my couch for 3 days, making sure I ate. I looked at you sleeping there and realized I wasn't just grateful, I was in love. And I've been running from it ever since." The confession settled over us like the snow piling against the windows. I paced the small room, boots leaving wet tracks on the pine floor. Memories flooded in. The way he always chose the seat next to me at bars, the protective way he'd glare at anyone who gave me grief about my artsy job, the weekend we spent backpacking in these same mountains 5 years ago when he had almost said something. I could see it now in hindsight. But I had been dating Sarah then, and he had been dating Lisa, and life kept moving. "I'm not gay," I said, the words automatic, defensive. Ryan's laugh was tired. Neither was I until I met you. Turns out labels don't matter when it's the right person. The storm raged harder, cutting off any chance of hiking out early. We were trapped together with nothing but truth and time. Over the next hours, we talked, really talked, like we never had before. He told me about the nights he lay awake wondering if I felt the same pull. I admitted the quiet jealousy I'd felt every time he brought a date to our group dinners. The words poured out, raw and honest, until my throat hurt. By midnight, the power flickered and died, leaving only the stove's glow. Ryan reached for my hand across the small table. Whatever happens when we get home, I won't regret this. Even if you walk away. I didn't pull away. For the first time in my life, the weight I had carried without naming it felt a little lighter. But outside the wind screamed a warning. The real storm was only beginning. Morning brought a world blanketed in white. The trail back to the truck buried under 2 feet of snow. We spent the day clearing a path, shoulders brushing, conversation careful but charged. Ryan's arm was stiff but healing, and every time I caught him watching me, I felt the kiss replay in my mind. By afternoon, we sat on the porch steps, sharing a thermos of coffee, the sun breaking through clouds. "What are we going to do?" I asked. Ryan set his cup down. "That's up to you. I've lived with this secret for years. You just got handed it yesterday. I won't push." His generosity made it harder. I thought about my parents, strict, church-going, the kind who still sent me articles about traditional values. My sister had already married and produced grandchildren. I was the holdout. Coming out, even to myself, meant appending everything. Yet sitting here with Ryan, the forest quiet around us, the idea of going back to pretending felt impossible. That evening we cooked venison stew over the stove, the domesticity of it startling. We talked about everything except the kiss, work, old friends, dreams we had given up on. Then, as the fire died low, Ryan stood and offered his hand. "Dance with me. No music, just let me hold you once without the world watching." I should have laughed it off. Instead, I took his hand. We swayed in the small space, his heartbeat steady against mine, and when he tilted his head and kissed me again, gentle, questioning, I kissed him back. No panic this time, only a deep rightness that scared me more than any confession. The decision came in that moment. I wouldn't run. We would figure this out together. But the next morning, the satellite phone crackled to life with a message from my mother. "Your father saw the hunting photos you posted. He's asking why Ryan's arm is bandaged and why you look so serious. Come home soon, honey. We miss you." The outside world was already closing in. We packed in silence, the easy closeness of the night before now shadowed by what waited in Denver. The hike out took twice as long, each step heavier. By the time we reached the truck, Ryan's hand found mine one last time. "Whatever they say, whatever they do, I'm here." I squeezed back, but doubt already gnawed at the edges of the warmth I had found in the forest. The drive home felt like crossing from one life into another, and I wasn't sure I was ready for what the new one demanded. Denver greeted us with the usual traffic and the weight of expectations. I dropped Ryan at his apartment, our goodbye awkward and too short. "Call me," he said, eyes searching mine. I nodded, but inside I was already calculating how to explain the trip to my family without revealing anything. Sunday dinner was torture. My father grilled me about the hunt, eyes narrowing at the photos on my phone. "You two look close," he said, the word heavy with implication. My mother changed the subject, but the tension lingered. That night Ryan texted, "Miss you already." No pressure. I stared at the screen for an hour before replying with a single heart emoji, the first time I had ever sent one to another man. Work offered no escape. At the design firm, colleagues asked about the trip. I gave vague answers. But when my boss mentioned a big client dinner and suggested bringing a +1, my mind went straight to Ryan. The misunderstanding came 2 days later. Ryan showed up at my apartment unannounced, flowers in hand. Simple sunflowers, nothing flashy. My neighbor saw and smirked. By morning, the office gossip mill had twisted it into "Ethan's got a new girlfriend." When I corrected a coworker, the look she gave me made my stomach drop. Ryan and I met at a quiet bar that evening. "They're going to figure it out eventually," he said, voice low. "Are you ready?" I wasn't. That weekend my sister called, voice tight. Dad saw you and Ryan at the coffee shop yesterday. He's asking questions, Ethan. Real questions. The family pressure crashed down like an avalanche. My father left a voicemail. We raised you right. Don't throw that away. Ryan listened to it with me, his hand on my shoulder. I'll leave if it's too much, he offered. The suggestion stung. No, I said fiercely. But I need time. The next week was hell. I avoided calls, buried myself in deadlines, and when Ryan suggested we take a short trip to clear our heads, I snapped at him for the first time. You don't get it. This isn't just about us. It's my whole life. Hurt flashed across his face, and he left without another word. That night alone in my apartment, I replayed every moment in the forest, wondering if the decision to kiss him back had been the biggest mistake of my life. But deep down I knew walking away would be worse. The separation lasted 10 days, 10 days of sleepless nights and second-guessing. Ryan respected my space, only sending one text. I'm here when you're ready. I spent the time driving mountain roads alone, stopping at the same trailhead where our trip had begun. Sitting on a fallen log, I finally admitted it to myself. I was in love with him too. The realization brought both terror and relief. But coming out meant sacrifice. My father's health had been shaky since his bypass. My mother relied on me for emotional support. Telling them could break the family. At work, the client dinner arrived. I brought Ryan as my plus one, introducing him simply as my best friend. The looks around the table told me no one bought it. Later, in the parking lot, Ryan turned to me. I'm proud of you for tonight, but I can't keep being your secret. His words cut deep because they were true. The next morning, I drove to my parents' house. The conversation was brutal. My father's face went pale. My mother cried. We love you, she said through tears, but this isn't what we wanted for you. I left with my heart in pieces, but for the first time, I didn't feel ashamed. Ryan met me at the park afterward. We walked in silence until he stopped under an old oak. You don't have to choose between me and them, he said, but I need to know if you're all in. I kissed him right there in broad daylight. No forest to hide us. I'm all in. The sacrifice came from his side next. A promotion at his firm required relocating to Chicago. He turned it down without telling me until the paperwork was signed. Denver is home, he said simply. You're home. His choice humbled me. We faced more backlash. Old friends drifting away, whispered comments at the gym, but each obstacle made us stronger. I started therapy, learning to quiet the voice that said I was betraying my upbringing. Ryan stood beside me through every session. Slowly the world adjusted, or at least the small circle we cared about did. My sister called first, offering cautious support. My mother sent a text with a heart emoji of her own. The journey wasn't over, but we were walking it together. 6 months later, we stood on the same Colorado trailhead where everything had begun, backpacks lighter this time, just a weekend getaway. The forest looked different now, brighter, more alive. Ryan took my hand openly as we hiked the familiar path to the cabin. Inside, we lit the stove, made coffee, and talked about the future without fear. I never thought a hunting trip would lead here, I said, laughing. He pulled me close. Best decision I ever forced on both of us. That night, under the stars, we sat on the porch, shoulders touching. The kiss we shared slow and full of promise. No more hiding, no more doubt. The man I had known as my best friend was now my partner, and the love that had terrified me in the snow had become the foundation of everything good. Back in Denver, life continued with its ordinary miracles. Shared apartments, Sunday brunches with friends who accepted us, even tentative dinners at my parents' where conversation stayed surface, but love still flowed. We had lost some people, gained others, and grown into versions of ourselves we could finally respect. The journey had cost us comfort, but it had given us truth. As we drove home from that weekend, Ryan glanced over. Worth it? He asked. I smiled. Every single second. True or false? One honest moment between two best friends in the wilderness can rewrite their entire futures without regret.